If you're trying to understand how to deal with stress better and what your stress response is, then you need to know about the five F's and how they contribute to a better mental health balance. Now, the five F's are fight, flight, freeze, fawn, and flop. Now, you might be wondering, what are those? Perhaps you've done some behavioural research before and you know some of those. Now, the fight response when you're faced with a stressor is you're trying to attack it, you're trying to go against it, and you're trying to overcome it. Now, typically, that can be in a lot of stressful situations and they're presented in different ways. You can have the complete opposite of this, which is the flight response, where you try to run away from that particular scenario and get away from it. Freeze is more when you're presented with an acute stressor. So it's something where you're presented with a situation that you don't know how to handle and you just freeze. You don't try to attack it, you don't try to run away from it, you just stop. Then you have flop. Now, the flop response is very similar to freeze. Rather than that very acute setting where you try to deal with that response, then you have fawn, which is people pleasing. Now, this is when you're faced with that stress response, but rather than try to do any other type of action, you try to please the things that are causing you stress, which can be a manager, it can be someone you're presented with in that situation. And as a result, you try to give them the response that you feel is going to get you out of that stressful situation. This might be you if you've ever said yes without really wanting to, but you do it anyway to try to get out of that awkward conversation or the awkward situation. And that's a fawning response where you're trying to people please. Then you have flop. Now, flop is very similar to freeze. The difference is in terms of how acute the stressor is. If you're faced with a very immediate stressor and you just don't know what to do in that situation, that's more freeze. Whereas flop is more lethargy. It's where presented with that situation and you just give up. What's the point? And that is a flop response. Now, by no means are these solutions to a problem. What these are the five different actions that your body can have in response to that stressful situation. You can think, how on earth do I deal with it, and which ways do I try to cope with it? Once you identify what the different ways that you're going to cope with that situation or how you handle that situation is, then you can start to think about different ways of how to actually deal with that stressful situation and come up with strategies to overcome it and to change your behavior. And that's how you start working towards that positive mental health journey and better well-being for you generally. This was something that I covered on a mental health first aid refresher course. If you have any questions on a research point, please drop a comment, or if you need any support in this area, then please drop a comment as well. I'm more than happy to signpost you to various different resources and professionals who might be able to help you deal with whatever stress you're going through.